Here we have the Pont du Gard. It's the highest bridge the Romans ever constructed 2,000 years ago. It was built to carry water from the countryside into the city of Nîmes, which was a big Roman center back in those days. And it continued carrying water for 500 years. Really a remarkable structure. Not only is this a work of great engineering, but it has come down to us as one of the most important works of art of the ancient world, a work of great architecture, recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You can get different viewpoints. This is a very nice viewpoint, especially in the morning. In the afternoon, you can go on the other side of the bridge for better lighting. That middle arch is the largest arch the Romans ever built, the lower level and the upper level both, the widest span that they ever crossed. So up on top, you got the water channel. It's a covered water channel so that it was protected from the elements. And the surface of the water channel had a kind of a clay and a slippery surface to it to facilitate the flow of water, to reduce the amount of friction. The interior surface of the water channel was not only held together with mortar joints, but it was covered with a special stucco that was composed in part of shards of pottery and tile, and then it was covered with an olive oil surface. And this made sure that it was very smooth and slippery so that the water could easily flow. Now, we were very fortunate on this visit that the canal itself was open, which is most unusual. Generally, when you're visiting the Pont du Gard, you're not allowed to walk through the channel, but in this day it was open, so we walked through, and here's what it looked like inside. Partly open and partly covered, forming a dark tunnel that tall folks will need to stoop to get through. It's in a beautiful setting. The river valley here is just really quite gorgeous. You have the forest and the rocky shores on both sides. Makes it a very picturesque setting, the Pont du Gard. If you walk along the path in front of the bridge for about a quarter mile and then come down to the river level itself, you get quite a spectacular reflection on a normal day with the calm waters of the river and the bridge looking like it's a double bridge above and below. It's really worth it. If you're here on a day when there's not very much wind, by all means take the time to come on down the river and have a look from the riverbank. You want to spend at least 1 hour when you're on the site because there's different viewpoints, different perspectives. You want to climb up the hill and look along the bridge from the top, and you surely want to walk out to have this kind of a view. That's definitely worthwhile. On a cloudy, bright day like this, it really looks perfect. The paved path from the visitor center affords some decent views, but don't settle for only this. Stroll up to the bridge and you can go on a well-marked hillside path to gain access to look at the aqueduct's upper level. Now here you're going to acquire firsthand respect for the amazing engineering skill that created this marvel. Leaving the aqueduct behind, walk down the slope, then along the stream on the sunny side of the structure for a few hundred yards to get the best possible view looking back towards the soaring masterpiece. This is one of the world's most astonishing ancient sites. It's a marvel that we've inherited from antiquity. It was built in the middle of the 1st century by the ancient Romans, and it is about 1,000 feet long and over 150 feet high. It's the tallest ancient bridge and the second highest structure the Romans ever built, after the Colosseum in Rome, which is just 6 feet higher. Of course, the reason they had to construct this enormous building was to get the water from one side of this valley to the other. It was water coming from a distant spring that was heading for the city of Nîmes. In ancient days, they didn't have pressurized water pipes that could go down a slope and then back up a slope, as we often do today. Their water channel had to be pretty level. It only dropped about 1 inch every 300 feet. So that's a a gradient, they say, of only 1 in 3,000. Remarkable precision from those ancient Roman engineers, enough to keep the water flowing at the right speed. You don't want the water to flow too fast, it'll wear away the structure, and you don't want it to go too slowly because then it stagnates. Just imagine the perfection of engineering that went into creating this long canal, in total length of just over 30 miles long. Curiously, the water source in a spring and the city of Nîmes are only 12 miles apart, but the aqueduct is 31 miles because it takes a winding course to match the contours of the landscape. It has to go around some foothills, so rather than going straight, it goes 3 times longer than the actual distance. They estimate that it took about 27 hours for the water to flow along that entire course. The bridge itself is 350 meters long, so it's really a small fraction of the total length of this long aqueduct. But the Pont du Gard is certainly the centerpiece, the masterpiece of the entire long canal. The bridge construction was generally done without the use of mortar or clamps. The stones were cut so perfectly that they were held together by gravity and friction. And this was a typical Roman technique. Paradoxically, a huge stone structure like this that's held together by friction and gravity can better withstand an earthquake than if it relied on mortar to hold it together. The most upper level of the channel did use some mortar to hold the stone slabs. This is the actual water channel itself. And so to help waterproof this channel, keep the water in, they used mortar to hold the stones together as well as to make it watertight. During its hundreds of years of use, the aqueduct had to be carefully maintained by the ancient Romans because things would grow, plants and calcite accretions would grow on the inside of the limestone channel, and so constant maintenance was necessary to scrape it off and keep the water flowing. It's estimated the aqueduct carried about 44 million gallons of water a day into the town of Nîmes, which was probably way more water than they needed in typical ostentatious Roman style. You might wonder, how could they ever lift the stones so high up from the valley bottom 150 feet high in the air? And these are very big rocks. Well, not much of a problem for those ancient Roman engineers. They were very good with block and tackle, with pulleys and ropes and gears and wheels. They understood the principles of engineering construction very well. That's how they were able to build so many monuments throughout their empire. It's a huge structure with an enormous volume of stone. It's a local limestone that was quarried from just about a quarter mile away from the bridge itself. There's as much volume of solid stone here equal to the solid volume of the Eiffel Tower. That's how big it is. They measured it at 21,000 cubic meters of rock that weighs 50,000 tons. Huge structure. Nobody's quite sure who the architect was, the names of the engineers, but one rumor is that it might be Marcus Agrippa, who was one of the great Roman engineers who built a number of waterways back in the city of Rome. And he was a quite noble statesman, upper class fellow. It took them only 5 years to construct the bridge, an amazing accomplishment. After the collapse of the Roman Empire, the aqueduct was no longer carrying water over its 31-mile length, and yet the bridge remained, and one of the reasons why is it was an actual bridge across this valley, and it was used as a toll bridge. Perhaps it was best described by the writer Henry James, who visited the Pont du Gard in 1884 and commented, "The hugeness, the solidity, the unexpectedness, the monumental rectitude of the whole thing leave you nothing to say." For a local French perspective on this amazing aqueduct, take a look at our other movie about the Pont du Gard featuring local expert Mark, He'll share his insights and fill you in on more of the history of Pont du Gard.